everybody. Welcome back
Hello,
to another
everybody. Yep,
episode of
I'm
Tiff.
so excited for episode number 3,
That's right. Here we are. So I'm Tiff. This is my
and I'm
coworker,
Tabs.
Tat, and we are Tiff4Tat, a CPQ podcast from Pierce, Washington, where we nerd out and talk about everything quote to cash. How
Yes,
you how you
Tiffany.
doing, Tat?
I I mean, when we go to clients, there's like CPQ has been around for a long time, but still, there's still people don't know what CPQ stands for. Some people says CPQ stands for causing people to quit. What do you think?
Yeah, so that is a funny acronym. Um, So causes people to quit. This is something that I heard maybe 6, 9 months ago, because it's very frustrating sometimes. CPQ products can be very hard to understand, hard to learn, especially if you're not tech savvy or you love numbers or whatever. It takes a very special type of person to really love a CPQ product, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think in general, I think it's a misconception. I'm very passionate about teaching people about technical things. So I think that it's really just a matter of being able to teach in a way that a person can understand. So I think that people understand their businesses, they understand how they quote. And I think that it's not a heavy lift to translate that from the business into a CPQ product. You just have to have patience.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize. I mean, like e-commerce is so common these days that I mean, you go to Amazon, you shop, but like 20 years ago, it's not like that, right? I mean, people don't feel comfortable shopping. You know, we talk about automation, office automation for a long time, right? The CPQ actually is kind of, to me, it's more like, it's really a business automation process to be able to create quotes, really on the internet, really, really efficiently, So it's surprising that still a lot of people don't know the term, which it has been around for a long time since probably since the dot-com days, probably. So
Yeah, totally. So on the Oracle side, Tat, do you feel like people think that CPQ is very complex? Because I'm really talking from the Salesforce side.
yeah, we still do because when a lot of times when we go into going to clients, it's very surprising that a lot of business still run on spreadsheets. So, when they say, CPQ, what is CPQ? Especially for, for people, business people, they still don't know what CPQ stand for. So it's, we still see, like, oh, a lot of times when we bring somebody in, from the business, they say, one first question would be, what is CPQ? That, the people you deal with every day, they usually know, but the people who are, really doing the day-to-day business for, work, they don't know. Which is surprising.
So what about like tech people that are trying to make a career out of Oracle CPQ, for example? Do they find it frustrating? Is it considered a very niche area, or is it something that
it is very special. It definitely is really specialized area because the circle is very small. A lot of times, you leave. You may be working with somebody 10 years ago, and then you run the same people twice, 3 times, over and over. I mean, I have clients that I implemented that CPQ for one platform, and then they come back for Oracle CPQ because the older software that I implemented doesn't support anymore. I actually had like 3 or 4 clients like that that I worked with them like multiple times, which is for different projects. They still stay in the same company, but I implement like their system like 3 times. So which
I
is
bet it's faster because you already know how their business works, right?
yeah. I mean, I already know some people, and which is kind of it makes the project easier and more interesting because you're more relaxed if you know somebody beforehand. So
Yeah.
which is it's kind of nice, because well, first of all, when somebody sees you and they say, oh, I don't want to work with the same people again, that means that you did a good job before, which is that's kind of rewarding, you when you see that.
Yes, absolutely. That's funny because I have a few clients too that I took from company to company as I was moving consulting firms. I think I have one that I took through 3 different consulting firms with me. So
Yeah, because it's a small market, right? Yeah, but not a lot of people doing this, so which is you run into the same people over and over. So
yeah, totally. Okay, Tat, so I want to ask you a fun question. You ready?
sure, yes.
Okay. So in consulting, we typically go on site a lot with our clients to meet them in person, to discuss their
Yeah.
business. I know I travel maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, depending on the season. So my question for you is, what is the coolest on-site visit you ever did?
Well, I'm an engineer by training, so I mean, I'm really kind of nerdy, so I get kind of excited about just little things, nerdy things. So when I don't do travel that much anymore, but I used to travel pretty much every week, so I get to go to client site a lot, so. But most of the time, you go to the client side, you sit in the, you sit in the conference room, probably, days from 8 to 5, every day, that gets kind of dry. But sometimes, it could be, it would be interesting, So I come from, engineering background, so I've been to a construction sites where it's always very noisy, everything is chaotic, and the job site is dirty, you have to wear hard hat and that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, when I first started doing CPQ projects, I had one client. They're kind of like they make turbines for for airplanes, generating plants, and all that, right? So
Oh, cool.
when when one day the client says, hey, the manufacturing facility just next door, you guys want to take a look? And I jumped on it, right? I said, yeah, sure, let's go take a look. I was expecting the place to be really noisy, I mean, things are going to be very chaotic, because that's where that's the kind of construction site and mentality that I have. But when I get into the to the building, it is totally surprising. The place is like the place is so organized. Everything is in in one. Everything has its own area. Like all the tools is nicely put in the proper place. The floor is as clean as as a cafeteria. You can practically eat on the floor, from the floor. So it's totally different than what I used to when I think about manufacturing facilities. And the place is it's also not noisy, which is a surprise to me because I was expecting drills and things like welding happening all over the place, that kind of thing. But I only see like carts going very slowly from station to station. All the parts are people move very methodically, which is really surprise to me because I mean, I never been to I consider turbine to be like high tech. So it's I never been to a high tech facility like that. So I'm just not used to to seeing something so running so so smoothly. To me it's almost like in a like in an office area rather than a manufacturing area, which is you don't that kind of place usually you don't get to see. So even when you go to a company, you know when you are a student, they take you around, they take a tour, you get to see that kind of thing. Once you start working, you don't get to visit that kind of places. That's kind of interesting. And then there's another place I visited, about 20 years ago, where in those days, automation is not, office automation is people start talking about those things. And one day, I noticed that on the floor there's like a different color of lines there, which I was I was curious, like for a few days, I mean, I would say, why are all these places with all these lines on the floor? As it turns out, like we were just walking around the office. I noticed that when a cart there's nobody driving the cart. It's just it's automatically. It was going from station to station. The the cart, actually it goes from station to station, and then it's a mailing distribution, cart. It just does that automatically, without person. Nowadays, you say, okay, this robot and all those things, but 10 years ago, that's not very common. So,
Wait, what was the robot doing? It was,
mailing, distribution, mailing, office mailing, or
oh,
paper.
like physical mail.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that was that was totally surprising. In those days, we don't. It's not as common as like you don't the automation is not like today. Where every like automatic driving cars and all those. No, though in that's like older days when people are still in the office. Everything is still pretty manual. And then they have like envelopes that basically put the inter-office mail. They still put it in, and that card would just take it from station to station automatically without a person.
How fun.
That was really really neat because I mean when we are in the office, I mean we don't get that kind of we see email and all those things, right? We don't see automation like in the traditional office with the kind of thing. So that's kind of interesting. Going from client to client, you kind of see different things. I find those things very interesting. Rather than just the stuck in the office in the consulting world. So, but
Totally.
that's part of the the benefit of being a consultant. You see things that you don't expect. So
Yes, that's funny. My background in CPQ, my first 15 clients or so were SaaS companies. So there wasn't anything physical to ever see, right? It's just the product is zeros and ones. And in order to fulfill an order, somebody just goes in a computer system and clicks a button, right? And voila, they have access to that license or that product or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, in the manufacturing world, there's a lot of physical items that you have to, take from station to station. It's very different than what, at least what I, once I start working in the high tech, in the consulting world, it's very different than I'm kind of miss the physical, items that you actually touch, in at work, so.
Yes, I love it. When I started getting manufacturing clients, it feels so good to actually see a real thing in the physical world that you're building software around to support, right?
Yeah. I still find it's almost like a kid going into a a toy store where you actually can touch stuff.
Yes. There's the project that I'm rolling off of now, it's large enterprise, it's infrastructure manufacturing, and one of their main products are manholes to support sewer systems or stormwater systems. And those things are complex and they're huge. The amount of concrete that it takes to build one of these things is just massive. So going on site there and like seeing these things in the physical world and like being able to touch a real thing that's not zero, it feels so good.
Yeah, I used to be a civil engineer, right? I used to inspect vaults, those underground, manholes. Some of them could be people don't realize how big they are. When they usually they dig a big hole underground and then put those things in. Some of them could be like 20 by 20, like huge. Are those things very complicated as far as using a configurator to using it in the CPQ environment? What do you find challenging in those in that project?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be complex, right? So one of my next clients is going to be cast iron pipes. So really, again, really large pipes. And a person from the client sent us a video of their production floor and how they're actually producing these. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see that in person. Like it's just fascinating how these things are made, right? So
yeah.
Coming back to your question, though, when you're using a product configurator, such as Logic.io, that's the big one in the Salesforce ecosystem right now. It's because it's great. It's best in class. Yes, it can be very complex. You have the number of attributes that you need in order to fulfill an order. So actually produce that item. come up with a bill of materials and steps in order to produce that item. And not just attributes, but you have to, in the configurator, be able to validate that that configuration is valid, right?
Yeah.
That in the case of manholes, right, in a manhole, you have to carve out holes in order for water to come in and go out of. That's a simplicity. And you have to be able to know when you're carving out those holes, are you doing it in a structurally sound way? Or do you have two holes that are overlapping, for example, because that weakens the integrity of the structure itself, right?
Yeah. So,
So
as being a civil engineer, so I know a little bit about those things. Like a lot of times, they no matter what you do, they generate like engineering drawings. What do you do, in CPQ work? Like, do you integrate with other systems to generate generate, like a 3D, models of those? And what do you guys, what does that look like?
So we did that on my last project. What they used was logic.io and a product called CDS. There are other drawings in 3D model companies in the market, such as 3Kit and K-Bridge. So there are a few options there, but essentially what happens is you have your CPQ system. So in this case, it would be Salesforce that links up to logic.io. It's seamless. The integration already exists. It's out of the box.
Yeah.
And then there's a little plugin that you put in whatever document generation tool you want to use into Logic. So it's 3 systems. Each one does what it does really, really well. But these integrations already exist and it's seamless. There's nothing really that we have to build or anything for that. So, but yeah.
Is it something that's easy for, like a manufacturer to, to add to their, things that the requirement, is it very, like you said, it's very simple. Does it take like months to integrate, or does it just say, they already have a lot of things pre-built and then it's just ready for you to basically, just have to integrate it, set it up, and then, a lot of things will work? Or does it, double the time, for the integration, or is it just, it's just a minor item to add? What is the, the time, the effort, like, for something like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, let me just say let me paint a little bit of a picture of what this looks like in the UI. Okay. It's a little bit hard to do in an audio format, but as a user, what would happen is you would go in your CPQ system, in this case, Salesforce, you would go pick the product that needs to be configured from a list of products.
Yeah.
Click, and then it opens up a new screen that's very visual, and it captures all of the attributes and all of the things that we need to know on the manufacturing floor of how to actually build that item. So the different dimensions of different things, what it's being used for, different mixes that go in the concrete. In this example where we're building manholes, right? But in any example, everything that you would need in order to build that. And then on the side of the screen, there's a 3D model that is being built out in real time as you're adjusting things. And then there's a button that you can click underneath that 3D model where you can export different 2D drawings, like spec sheets, that in different formats. So that's what it looks like to a user. So it's really just a couple of clicks. You're not swivel chair, you're not swiveling into different systems. And so coming back around to your question about integrations, the integration itself is already built. So you can think about it like the highway is already there, but you do have to name the cars that are driving down the highway, right? So every company is going to have different attributes, for example, that they're populating. If there are things, so what I see a lot is location-based configuration. So things that have to be configured because of a different spec in a different area. So something like that, you would want to bring in from the account, as opposed to having a user enter in the address or the location of the thing. You already have that in your CRM system typically. So that is something that would be integrated from when you click that product that needs to be configured. The system automatically brings in the location data once that configuration screen appears. So all of the rules that you have based on that specific location can run in that configuration session.
Yeah, that's
That
very
is,
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had the, like done project where, okay, you select an item, we update an image. I think, your project took it to another level. It's almost like it's a visual configurator, right? You just pick things and things that get put in, to before, for us, like we'll have images that we just say, oh, you take, you select this option, we add this image, it kind of build up a final image. But you guys are doing it, much more sophisticated than what I have seen. But that's really exciting.
yeah, it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, the as far as the configurator, do you see configurators more often, in the Salesforce world these days?
Yes, yes, definitely. That's the answer. Full stop. Yes. Definitely more configuration happening in Salesforce CPQ projects these days. I would say in general, we're seeing a lot of manufacturing clients do digital transformation projects. And what that means is that they're coming off of Excel, they're coming off of different configurators that have existed in the past. Some of these
Yeah.
some of these old configurators, they work, they've done their job, they've brought a lot of value to the
Yeah.
company. So I don't hate on them too much, but sometimes when you look at them, it's like a blast from the past. There's like magenta and like lime green, like across
Yeah.
the screen, like just the UIs. It looks very, 70s, 80s. And again, they have brought a lot of value. There's a lot to be said about a simple system, right? But yes, I would say manufacturing as an industry in general, I think there's a lot of initiatives that are going on with manufacturers to bring their systems up to date and to do more consolidation so they don't have 8 different systems. And if you're building a manhole, you're in this system. If you're building a catch basin, you're in that system. If you need a pipe, you're in this other system. Or a lot of these big manufacturers also grow through acquisitions. So a lot of what I've seen too is each acquisition, each little operating company or business unit or whatever it's called, but each little company that gets acquired does business in its own way. And of course, they're a successful business and successful enough to be acquired. So a lot of times that way has been working, but in order to meet the goals of the larger company and to bring everybody together and to enable cross-selling against different business units and against those acquired companies and stuff, it takes one holistic system that can really give visibility into all of those different processes.
Yeah,
So
I think I mean, like a lot of people don't when they see, like CPQ, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to need a configurator, like there's I mean, I have clients that their products are very simple, and they basically, they have like, oh, 20 products, with just a list, and before they just have it quoted in in Excel spreadsheet. And a lot of times, I mean, they want to say, oh, I want to implement a configurator, for our products. When you have like a small number of products like that, it's configurator, because you can learn 20 product pretty easily, right? Because it doesn't take a long time to do. So, a lot of times, to me, you may not need the configurator, when you have something simple, or if you have a list of product that really don't have any rules, you just pick and choose to put in a cart, in your quote, and then usually, you don't really need a configurator. Salesforce, like when the CPQ world started, they didn't really focus on configuration as much as today. I think today is like everybody has a lot of companies are they're selling very complex products online, doing the quote process. I think I'm also seeing more and more in Oracle world too, that people more they understand what when a product configurator is going to be helpful to them, when they have and a lot of rules, that those are things that are a configurator becomes really necessary. I see a lot a lot of clients these days that they're more sophisticated, even though the business people may not know, CPQ stand for, but the people who actually, manage the products, they realize how essential a configurator is to automate the process, because a lot of the rules that are in people's head, it's very easy to implement in the configurator, because
Yes.
configurator is the rules engine, right? So, and if you can describe the rule to me, then we can find a way to implement it, right? So, which is that kind of makes the CPQ world a lot more interesting than just e-commerce, because every customer sells different products, even though everything is CPQ all the time, but the rules are different. And then there's always a complexity, in the products and how you build them makes a difference, So I find CPQ, like what we talked about last time, CPQ is much, much more interesting than e-commerce.
So, just coming back around to what you said earlier, I think it's interesting when we get asked questions from companies like, should I use a product configurator, right? And it's questions like that, or even as simple as, should we implement this small feature? Should we automate this thing? When I look at something like that, the first question I ask is it going to bring value to your business, right? So that's where I start. And to evaluate something like that, to evaluate a question of, is this going to bring value to your business? Sometimes it takes a lot of effort and a lot of fine and analysis and thinking about, and some just theories, right? You have to put a hypothesis out there.
The key to this thing, this question is what you're trying to accomplish, right? So, a lot of times, at least when I first started, people always complain about, we couldn't quote accurately. We always get into a situation that where we quote something to the customer, there are parts missing, or we forgot something, or our sales staff don't know the product well enough to actually create a quote. We always have to bring in a specialist to create something, even something simple. Like you get into a situation like, it takes like a year, to train somebody to be efficient in creating a quote for the customer, and then whenever you face that kind of situation, and then your quote is inaccurate, or like there's a lot of error, that's when the configurator comes in really, really helpful, because it doesn't let you forget something. If you're able to describe all the rules and then implement it, it will not let you create a configuration that's not valid.
That's right. Absolutely.
So that's really when I say a configurator is absolutely necessary, is to say, if you want to reduce the error in your quote, if you want to automate some of the business rules that the product related business rules that are that say, okay, if you order this part, you have to order something else, or you cannot have two of something. Those are the kind of rules that that you put in. Now, once you put in, nobody have to remember it anymore, because that becomes the rule. Maybe there's a handful of people who understand these product rules, but a sales person doesn't really care. It doesn't really need to know. That's the time that you say, oh, a configurator is just really, really helpful, because if somebody leaves, once you implement it, the rules there. You don't really rely on somebody's remembering that certain rules. So to me, is the easiest way to tell you, to say, okay, look at your problems. What are you trying to solve? If you can say, I want somebody else to check me, that's when the configurator is helpful, I think.
Totally. Yeah, and the other part too is, you hit along the line of, are there errors in configuration? Are there errors in quoting? How much are those errors costing the business in time, in returns, in failed projects of their own, et cetera? The other side to that I see a lot of businesses get value in any CPQ project, certainly in a product configurator, but even in just Salesforce CPQ, or even just Salesforce, is time savings. How long does it take for someone to put in an order? How long does it take for them to configure that product? How long does it take for them to take a sales cycle from lead all the way to order? How long does it take for that person to do that in the
That's
system?
efficiency. Yeah, because
And then how accurate is it?
yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize that, when you quote something wrong, it's not just an error that you can correct. Even when you correct it, a lot of times the customer's unhappy because they think that you cheated, you gave them a wrong configuration to cheat them.
Right.
So
lose
what
confidence.
you end up happen is that, oh, we forgot to quote you this. But since we forgot, you need it and we made a mistake, I was just throwing it for free just to keep the
Right.
customer happy, and then to keep the customer in just get into the good grace, right? So that's a lot of cost. When you miss the big item, it could be like a third of revenue that you lost. So
That's right.
a lot of people don't realize that errors means money.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
just not just something that you just, oh, I can just correct it. It's not so simple like that in the real world.
Right. And especially with modern configurators like Logic.io actually generates a bill of materials that
Yeah.
gets sent to the ERP and gets manufactured based on that bill of materials. So if there's an error, which if you build Logic the right way, there's not an error, but if whatever system you're in is generating a bill of materials that's incorrect, then it's not just the loss of confidence in your customer and resource time that you're paying these people to go and fix it and all that, but it's also materials on the manufacturing floor that these companies have to waste because they're errors, or they have to rebuild or recycle or whatever it is, depending on the scenario. But it's a lot of wasted physical materials as well in the manufacturing plants.
Yeah. Tiffany. I always get the Tiffany and Stephanie, those two names always messed up.
That's
So
okay. I get Tiffany, I get Stephanie, I get Brittany, I get Jessica, I get Amanda.
yeah. So
So,
like in CPQ project nowadays, and it also kind of like people also say quote to cash, CPQ. What is what have you seen like as far as the like CPQ projects, when it comes to the end-to-end process, and also what kind of integration have you seen like doing a CPQ project. I'm curious what you see in the Salesforce world compared to the CPQ world. What is the difference? Are there any differences as far as integration?
yeah, so I can answer that. Integrations are fun. I love integrations. There's a lot of different ways to do an integration. There are things that you can do that make integrations very simple. There are things that you can do that make integrations very complex. And then there are things that you can do that make integrations completely fail. So when we're talking about quote to cash, typically we're starting around that opportunity point. So when this whole sales process starts, you have a lead, right? That's typically marketing or marketing product. And then base CRM is lead to opportunity conversion. So at what point does that company consider this lead to be a real opportunity? Like we really have a chance at this. And then Salesforce CPQ or quote to cash product starts when you're quoting. So at whatever stage in that opportunity you start quoting. So there's a lot of integrations to talk about on the lead side. So lead services, I've done a lot of those, even though it's a little bit pre quote to cash. And then once you get into that quote though, the integrations that really matter are products, pricing. If you're not mastering products and pricing in Salesforce, which typically happens with larger clients that have an established SAP or other ERP system. Typically it's SAP though, and they're mastering all of their products and pricing out of SAP, then those two integrations are extremely key. And then as you go further down the line, you continue, you quote, you assume it, in all of my examples ever, the client always wins. So all opportunities, all my examples of opportunities, they close the deal. Everyone's super excited. and an order is generated. And then the other real key integration in any CPQ implementation is that order creation and then send to the ERP for those downstream processes. And that order integration can be really, really simple. The simplest integration and what we recommend usually is you let your CRM and your quoting tool get you up to the point of order creation. And as soon as that order is created, it goes into the ERP for fulfillment. There are some clients that ask for a little bit more order management inside the CRM, which can be supported for sure. But my recommendation is always let the ERP do what the ERP is really good at.
Yeah.
Typically order management and fulfillment. Anything having to do with logistics, you definitely want that in your ERP and outside of Salesforce. But still, a little bit of that can be accommodated in that line. Every project, you have to figure out where that line is exactly of where the CRM ends and where the ERP begins.
Yeah. In your projects now, how important is it that is middleware? In that what kind of role does middleware play? In the integration.
Yeah, so I would say the only time that I've seen clients get away without a middleware, I would say it's very small projects, and in that case, it's just like a point-to-point integration. But when you want in any size, like any significant size integration, any significant size project, for real scalability, you want middleware. In Salesforce, the king of middleware is MuleSoft, of course. But there are other options on the market, and a lot of interesting things that people are doing in that integration space. So yeah, but I would definitely say you need middleware in order to scale, because that integration is always going to change, right? You have one product, you bring a new product line in, for example, well, you're going to need different attributes once you get to that order piece that the ERP is going to need to fulfill or manufacture that product. So those integrations in any company that is building to scale, they're always changing, and middleware is really the go-to solution in order to be able to change things fast and make rapid updates.
Yeah, time really flies when you're having fun. Look, we only have a few minutes left.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, though, I'm curious, Tat, on your side, on the Oracle CPQ side, what is your experience with integrations? Is it typically the same things that I said? Or
yeah, it's typically the same thing, because when if you're in a cloud environment, there's a lot more restrictions on what you can do. So the sandbox is a lot more, the wall is a lot higher, and then the sandbox also smaller. So, you have to, a lot of times you have to work within the sandbox. And for example, right, like if you are, like let's say, from the world I came from, like Java world, if you want to connect to a database, sure, I can just connect to a database. In a cloud world, you don't have that. First of all, the database, you cannot access it directly, So a lot of times you really need a middleware to facilitate that, so that if you want to connect to something, sometimes even just a simple service, you need a middleware. But also, middleware is also the nice part about it is you kind of abstract it from from the system, so you don't really have to deal with a lot of the security issues that you worry about. So, and most of the time, I mean, we do recommend use of a middleware, in maybe a small role, but somehow you need something. And this is one thing that I think, I mean, CPQ projects, if you just say, oh, we just want to create a quote, just within the within CPQ, it's pretty straightforward project. It's pretty but the complex part is the integration. Most of the time is the fun thing is really the integration, and that's the part that like Pierce Washington brings a lot of value to. We have a lot of experience with integration, that we can bring to the table, that help clients to make it simpler, so that they don't repeat things that we know won't work, because we know it won't work because once upon a time we probably just made a mistake And then
Yeah.
we learn that the way. So that's the kind of thing that a lot of times the integration is really helpful if you have done it before. So yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely can do without middleware.
Yeah. I think the tough part about integration is really you need a person that is able to translate languages,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Salesforce speaks a certain language, SAP or NetSuite or another ERP speaks a different language,
Yep.
and you need a person that can bridge that gap. And
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
really hard if you haven't done it before.
No, I mean, yeah, sometimes, I mean, just like, if you just have never done something before, you kind of gun shy, you know.
Yeah.
But, you have done it, many times or, a few times, and you say, okay, I know this is going to work, for sure, right? That saves a lot of time, a lot of, a lot of trial and error, you don't, you make, you reduce a lot of mistakes because
Yeah.
you can definitely get something to work, may not, there's 100 ways to kill a cat, except that certain ways are much better.
That's right. So, okay, well, with that, Ted, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for continuing to nerd out with me. I love talking to you, and definitely time flies when we're on these. I love learning from you. It's very, very interesting to see the differences and similarities in Oracle and
Yeah,
Salesforce.
I learn a lot from talking to you too, Tiffany. But it's really, really, nice conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So, as Tat mentioned earlier, at Pierce Washington, we have a lot of experience in integration. We have about 20 years experience in the quote to cash space, both on the Oracle side and the Salesforce side. We deal with large manufacturing clients in addition to all sorts of clients. Like I said, my background is in SaaS clients. So we are really a one-stop shop for all of your quote to cash needs. So do not hesitate to reach out if you need some help. And until then, Tat, I will see you later. Have fun on the Oracle side.
All right, see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.